Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with you. I have a special guest with us. It's Tim Canova. You know him. You love him. He's the progressive who ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz last time. He's a law professor, and he ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida's 23rd. And you know what? There was some foul play in that election, and it looks like Tim may have won. So now he's tired of the Democratic establishment cheating him, and he's decided to run as an independent in 2018 against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he's here to talk about it. Welcome back, Tim Canova.
Thank you, Jimmy. Great to be with you.
Now, Tim, tell me what's going on now. There was a problem with the ballots. Now, tell everybody what happened with the ballots, because Broward County is supposed to keep the ballots for 18 months before they can destroy them, but they destroyed them early, right? Is that what happened?
Well, actually, they're supposed to keep them for 22 months.
Okay.
In every federal election, that's the federal law, that those ballots must be maintained for 22 months. And let me give you just a little background. We put in a public records request to inspect the ballots because of concerns about the actual outcome and the results of the election, the official results. When we put in that records request, the Broward Supervisor of Elections, they just stonewalled us, and it forced us to file a lawsuit. While the lawsuit was pending, that's when they destroyed the ballots. And it didn't just violate a federal law. The Broward Supervisor of Elections certified that the ballots were not subject to any pending litigation. So, it was lie upon lie, you could say. And it was all very illegal. And why would you break the law to destroy ballots? What kind of evidence are you trying to hide? So we have a lawsuit pending. We're hoping that the judge will rule our way and award us attorney's fees. We're calling for the Secretary of State of Florida to the Secretary of State is already investigating, and we're encouraging him to investigate a little bit harder and more diligently. I sent out a letter to really all the elected officials and party officials in the state, both Democratic and Republican, and the silence among the Democrats has been absolutely deafening. And this is really what led to my decision to change from a Democratic Party to a non-party affiliation and to challenge Wasserman Schultz as an independent. That the Democratic Party has not changed whatsoever here in Florida. They're fine with the destruction of ballots. They're fine with a lot of the dirty tricks that were happening in our last campaign. They try to prevent candidates like me who are challenging incumbents to even speak at party functions. They're okay with incumbents like Wasserman Schultz taking a lot of corporate money and dodging debates. So the deck was still stacked against us heavily. It concerned me a lot that if I ran in a closed primary at the end of August, if that supervisor has not been replaced by then, how crazy is that to have the same supervisor who destroyed the ballots in the last race to be supervising this upcoming primary? So I thought, I'll take my chances in a general election. By then, maybe that supervisor will be gone.
So the state's attorney is looking into this already?
Well, the Secretary of State is
Secretary of State? Okay, yeah. So this is Secretary of State was a Republican?
Yes, it's a Republican.
So is that an advantage for you?
Well, the advantage is that I think they should be motivated to do something about this and not remain with the status quo. The Democrats have controlled Broward County for a long time. This Supervisor of Elections is clearly an ally of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and so are others high up in her office. So we're hoping that the Secretary of State and the governor, who's a Republican, who I don't support, but that's beside the point. These are elected officials, the Secretary of State and the governor, who are charged with upholding the law and enforcing the law. We would welcome a Department of Justice inquiry. I've tried to contact the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, twice to ask them to please look into this. This has been, violation of federal law. And we're still waiting for the FBI to call us back on this.
Well, the FBI... The FBI is very busy with the Russians right now. I don't know.
That's what I've been saying. They're chasing these Russian phantoms, and they're too busy to actually root out actual election corruption here in the United States that's done by Americans against Americans.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't the $5 billion in free media given to Donald Trump that helped push him over the. I think it was 13 Twitter trolls. I don't know about you.
Exactly.
And I say that with a straight face. I'm just a straight face, and I don't care who thinks I'm a jackass. So, Tim, this is a big move for you not to run inside the Democratic Party. And now, my thing is, are there progressive young Democrats? I think Bernie is he's trying to bring people into the party, yet himself he isn't a Democrat. Right?
That's right.
He won't declare himself to be a Democrat, yet he's trying to herd people into the party instead of trying to build a third party, because I think the only way you change the Democratic Party is exactly what you're doing, is run outside them and you say you can't win without us. And so either we take it over or they have to finally negotiate with us, because people forget what happened when Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race. Hillary Clinton didn't then meet the progressives halfway. She went the exact opposite. She went right. Her vice president was to her right. Her vice president is to the right of Ted Cruz almost. So that's what, it's not going to change the Democratic Party. They think you owe them your votes. Look what just happened with Doug Jones in Alabama. 93% of black men and 97% of black women voted for Doug Jones, and he just voted for a banking deregulation that is going to discriminate against black people, and everybody knows it. So my point is, I applaud you for doing this, because I think we need pressure from the outside, working inside the party. A lot of people are doing that. I think that's a pipe dream. They are not going to, because we already know that Democrats would rather lose to a Republican than win with a progressive. So do you think it's going to help you fundraise that you no longer have a D next to your name, or do you think it will hurt you?
No, it's already helped tremendously in just a few days. We've had a tremendous response from all over the district and all over the state and all over the country, where people have basically been saying hallelujah. We've been waiting for this. People feel burned by the Democratic Party, and a lot of folks were just not willing to fund another internal challenge within the Democratic Party, even against somebody as reviled as Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And suddenly, many hundreds of folks have stepped up and made contributions in just the last couple of days to the campaign. So we've seen a significant uptick in our fundraising already, and I think it will probably continue to grow. So I think it was a necessary move. It was one that I got to rather reluctantly. It's a pretty Democratic district, but there are a lot of independents now in this district and all over the country. I think we're talking about almost a third of the registered voters now in this district are non-party affiliation. And it's particularly the case among younger voters, millennials and younger, where I think the polls are showing 60 to 70% of them are non-party affiliation. And, if the Democrats think they're going to get these young voters to re-register Democrat to vote in a closed primary at the end of August, it's just not really going to happen. We tried to do it 2 years ago. We got about 5,000 voters in our district, I believe the estimate was, to re-register either as from independent or Republican to Democrat to vote for me in the primary. And we put a lot of effort in, and to only move the dial by about 5,000 votes it was rather frustrating. Now we're going to be playing in a bigger field, a longer time horizon. We'll be on the ballot in November, and we'll be able to go after all these votes, independents, even Republicans, Libertarians, Greens, and Democrats. If you believe the official results from our last race, I got just shy of 44% of the Democrats. Listen, if we're able to maintain that level of support among Democrats, we should really make a killing among independents, and we should be over the top and win this thing. And then there's also the whole question, was that even an accurate vote count of 44% of the vote?
Right, meaning you think you might have gotten more, but there's no way to check it now because they destroyed the ballots illegally, correct?
Well, that's right. The election law experts that I speak with, they tell me that the problem with the digital scanned images is that you can manipulate the software to pretty much get any kind of results you want among the digital scanned images, which is, I think, one of the reasons that Tulsi Gabbard has this bill where she calls for audits that could be possibly made through electronic voting machines with open source software. There's a lot of criticism even of that. Listen, I've come to believe that Tulsi's bill is a big step in the right direction, but what we really need in this country is how we did it for 200 years. Paper ballots counted by hand in public and reported at the local precinct level immediately on election night. This country can afford literally trillions of dollars in tax cuts and corporate subsidies for Wall Street banks. We should be able to afford a few $billions to employ ordinary Americans all over this country to actually count ballots on election night to make sure that the vote count is transparent, accurate, and verifiable. That is really the only way to go if those are your goals, to have an accurate vote count that's transparent and verifiable.
Now, I'll just recommend a campaign ad for you. I have a videotape of where Debbie Wasserman Schultz is asked point blank on CNN if she is cheating in favor of Bernie Sanders. And she says point blank, categorically, no, we are not. And we all know that she was. Now, Donna Brazil said the whole thing was completely rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was literally running the DNC at that point. There were no communications that could go out, no PR things, unless it went first through the Hillary Clinton campaign. And that's called election fraud, which is the biggest election fraud that was committed in the history of our country. And now we're blaming Russia. So yeah. I think that that would be the commercial I would run. What do you think? So,
Jimmy, I think that's the same interview where right after she says, no, we didn't do any fraud, she then says, listen, if I wanted to rig the election, of course, we know how to do that.
Yeah.
And we actually have that video up on our YouTube channel now. And, folks can see these videos. Go to timcanova.com. We've got a great 4-minute video of pretty much me being interviewed on your show, Jimmy, and also on another TV cable show talking about the election fraud. And we spliced it in with highlights of the videotaped deposition of the Broward supervisor of elections.
Ah, okay. Fantastic.
It's so revealing. She admits that she destroyed the ballots in violation of federal law. She gives the lame excuse that it was all just a mistake. And then when she's asked, how could you sign a ballot destruction order certifying that the ballots were not subject to pending litigation when you knew this litigation was going on? And she said that she just signs any of the forms they put in front of her face.
Ah, that's a good leader, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, you know what? I remember that videotape, too, where she says, believe me, if we wanted to rig the primary, there's a million ways we could have rigged it. Who says that except a cheater? That's what a cheater says.
Exactly.
And of course, she was punished right away. She had to step down from the DNC, and she immediately got punished with another position in the Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign.
Yeah, I mean, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is really the epitome of what's wrong in this country and with this Democratic Party. The fact that the party leadership didn't come down on her and say, listen, your time has passed. It's time really for you to step down as a congresswoman in the interests of the party. Just shows how deaf they are to what's happening in this country. And it shows the same with the Hillary Clinton campaign. To make Debbie Wasserman Schultz the co-chair of the Clinton campaign right after she had to resign from the DNC was just the height of arrogance, and it showed they really didn't have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in this country.
Well, Tim, I was at the DNC, the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, and it was right after Debbie Wasserman Schultz had been revealed to be a liar and a cheater from WikiLeaks, and she stepped down. And then she went to address the California, her state's delegates, and they booed her and wouldn't let her talk.
Right.
You should maybe play that videotape. That's her own people. That's the delegates from Florida booing her because she cheated them. She didn't cheat the Russians. She didn't cheat the Republicans. She didn't cheat the Saudis. She cheated Democrats. That's who Debbie Wasserman Schultz cheated.
And she's still pulling the strings in Florida Democratic politics. All over this state, when there are progressives who are stepping up to run in primaries, even when it's primaries where it's not a Democratic incumbent, but it's a Republican incumbent, the party establishment, the Democratic Party establishment, tries to block them, tries to find establishment candidates who will get corporate money to run against them. They're constantly putting their fingers on the scale to hurt progressives. And everyone knows Wasserman Schultz is behind this.
Well, she's in bed with the payday lenders, too. I mean, Tim, you got to beat this person. That's, she's got every bad thing you can think of. She's literally in bed. She's figuratively in bed with payday lenders. She does the bidding of payday lenders. And who do they prey on? The most vulnerable and poorest people around us, the working poor. That's who they prey on.
Well, and Jimmy, it goes beyond the payday lenders. She takes a lot of money from Wall Street banks that supply the line of credits to those payday lenders.
Right.
She takes money from private prison companies while she's been pushing for a private immigration detention center right here in our district in Southwest Ranches. She takes money from fossil fuels, big sugar, big alcohol, big pharma. She's a drug warrior. She's everything that's wrong with this party. You're absolutely right. We have to beat her, and we've got to make sure the votes get counted properly this time as well. It was a big eye-opener to me how bad the election system itself is. And it wasn't just what happened in my race. I keep bringing up what happened to Bernie Sanders as well. Just in New York City alone, when 200,000 voters get purged, and there's no consequences.
None. Nobody went to jail. So Eric Schneiderman decides to have an out-of-court settlement with people who literally admitted they cheated and kicked 200,000 voters off the rolls. And nobody, Rachel Maddow do about 5 segments on it. She didn't do nothing. Right. So nobody's talking about this. This is the real election fraud. There's real election fraud that happened, and nobody's talking about it, and no one goes to jail for it either.
And the point that I've been making, this is not just an injury to Bernie Sanders or to me in my campaign. This is an injury to the hundreds of thousands of people who contributed to my campaign and the millions of people who contributed to Bernie Sanders' campaign. It's an injury to our democracy. It undermines the public faith and confidence in elections for good reason. This has got to be the number one issue. All the other issues, they're so vitally important. Medicare for all, jobs, infrastructure, the environment, racial justice, the drug war. But you're not going to make any progress on any of those issues if you don't have an election system that actually properly counts the votes.
All right, Tim Canova, well, we wish you the best of luck running as an independent, trying to unseat neoliberal and enemy of progressives, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Jimmy.
I think it's a smart move. I think it gives a lot more people an attempt to vote for you and support you. So God bless Tim Canova. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. And Jimmy, let me just make one last plug. Please go to timcanova.com, throw a few dollars our way, and spread the word to others. We need all the help we can get.
Okay, Tim Canova, fighting progressive, fighting for you. God bless you. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.